Welcome to another episode of the CC Podcast Conversations, where inspiring Christians share their faith-filled stories. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. This helps push our content to a broader audience. Are you new to listening? Check out our other podcasts. First, the CC Podcast Daily Dose Devotions, where we're walking through the Bible, focusing on short clips of Scripture. Second is the CC Broadcast, where our weekly radio programming is archived. These podcasts are available wherever you're listening or at ChristianCrusaders.org. Okay, let's get started with today's episode. Here's our host, Matt Reister, the Executive Director of Christian Crusaders.
Hey everybody, Matt Reister with Andrew Nordstrom here. How you doing, Andrew?
Great, Matt. How are you?
We're in a little bit different location than usual. We're at the Gaylord Opryland, Delta Ballroom A.
Yeah.
National Religious Broadcasters Convention, Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, it's excellent. The hotel's beautiful. The convention's beautiful. We're in a little bit less beautiful part of the convention area right now, but ready to do one interview here, and then the rest of the interviews we'll be doing from a different location.
So this interview is one I'm really looking forward to. It's with Beathard. Casey is a songwriter, does a bunch of country songs. If you're a country music fan, I know that you would know several songs that he's written. He's also the father of CJB. That's CJ Beathard, the former quarterback for the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are near and dear to my heart. He lives down here. Had a chance to meet him in Iowa a few years ago, and he's got just an amazing story on many different fronts, and we're waiting for him to show up.
Yeah.
And we're testing out the equipment.
Yeah.
He's
also son of Bobby Beathard. Pretty notable sports figure for people who are NFL fans, general manager, executive, who was around the NFL a long time, did a lot of good things.
Totally. It's going to be a great interview. And it sounds like the equipment's working, which is amazing because a bunch of it didn't show up because somebody packed the box wrong.
Yeah.
And there was a hole in it, and it just dropped out along the way. FedEx didn't get us all our stuff.
No,
I wonder who that was.
Who could have packed that box? We're missing a little bit of the frame for our backdrop, though that seems to have come out okay. And
so this is the first year that we've been exhibitors at the NRB convention. We're kind of doing a trial run with that.
Yeah.
It's not cheap, but this is a great place to make great contacts. We're going to have a bunch of good interviews throughout the week, so you have to come back and hear more and more. And Andrew's down here. He's going to be producing them and putting them up basically in real time. So that's exciting. So we went to the FedEx store, which is in this hotel, and got our stuff. And the guy carried it out of the back room, this huge bulging box that was taped together, and said, "I'm sorry about the condition of your box. They didn't pack it well." and they is me.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been an adventure. This, like you said, first time having a booth here and having some different stuff to bring down. The lady at the airline check-in looked at us a little strange when I handed her one box with a bunch of poles in it, metal poles that we can hang our backdrop on, and then the second checked bag that I handed her was literally a folding table that we duct taped together to make sure it wouldn't fall apart in the flight. So, we're learning a lot of things, doing some fun things. We'll see how it turns out. God willing, we're going to get some great interviews and some content that's going to inspire people.
Jen, my wife, is down here with us. She's actually completing the setup of our exhibit while we're up here in the media center getting this interview ready to go. But I'm hoping that sometime this week we can get you and Jen and I in here to just kind of give some insights about what have you learned, what have you seen.
Yeah.
And that'll be cool.
This is your second NRB. My first NRB, and Jen's obviously first too, where I think we're all going to have some good different perspectives, but interesting things.
It's basically the industry. It's the industry convention for religious broadcasters, and so all the religious radio people and now podcast people, the Chosen, is that popular TV show about Jesus' life? They're here. Last year I actually came. It was in Texas. I came down and kind of with a critical eye, thinking I'm not sure it's worth what we're paying to be part of this organization, and so I was going down there looking for a way to opt out, but I quickly realized the value that this convention has to our ministry in terms of networking, getting podcasts, guests, learning things, tricks of the trade.
Yeah, you came back last year with a list of about 15 or 20 things that we want to implement, and this conversation we're having right now, doing a little pre-interview chat with you and me, that's one of the things you learned about and has gone over, I think, pretty well.
Yeah, we call this the sidekick interview, and people are just walking by who's like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
The sidekick interview is a thing that we learned at NRB, and this is the first time we've done it before the interview actually happens.
Yeah,
usually
I think
we're doing
so.
it afterwards.
Yep.
So
that's good.
Anyway, hope you enjoy, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think you're going to enjoy it. I've been thinking about this interview. I've got all my questions ready to go. I think it's going to be one of the best CC podcast conversations episodes we've done so far.
Yeah.
I hope it bears out that way, and thanks for tuning in. Check us out the rest of the week for other content. Hey everybody, Matt Reister here. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am at NRB, and this is my first interview of the week. I think it might be the best interview of the week, but we'll just see how it plays out. I've got Casey Beathard with me. Casey, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, thanks. You say that with everybody, I bet.
You know, I don't say I think it's going to be the best. I'm really, really excited about this.
Thank you.
I want to tell people how this even came to be. And you said you remember it, but I can't believe that you would. So a good friend of mine and our associate radio preacher for Christian Crusaders Radio and Internet Ministry is Tim Butker. Tim Butker lives in Cedar Falls, Iowa, where our ministry is based. And Tim's son, Ike, played offensive line at the University of Iowa, the Hawkeyes. And while Ike was playing football there, your son, CJ, was our quarterback. And so Ike blocked for CJ. They became good friends. CJ was in Ike's wedding. And sometime during his time in Iowa City, CJ's, Butker's invited myself and my son to one of those lunches that they had for families after the spring game in the football facility. You remember those?
Yes.
Did they do that every year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that place wasn't built for all of his years there. So, yeah, the last couple of years, yes.
Totally. So at that, somehow Tim introduced me to you, and I had only recently learned before that you were a songwriter down here in Nashville, country music.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, I swore I would never like country music. Grew up in Iowa. I thought it was so stupid in high school. And I was a custodian at a church in college. And all the other guys, a big church, and all the other guys I worked with were all these farm kids from rural Iowa, and all they listened to was country music, and they were kind of had seniority on me, so they didn't get a pick. I didn't get any say in the radio station. And I fell in love with country music in the mid-'90s. Yeah. And so now, and we're going to talk about some of the stuff you've written and how that all goes, but I was just looking at some of the big hits that you've been part of writing. It's like, man, this is cool. And one of them is a song by Trace Adkins called Just Fishing.
Yes.
And I know I'm going into detail on this story, but I'm trying to connect the dots for why I'm interested in interviewing you. My son Mason and I are in the process, and we started in 2014, of watching the Yankees play in every ballpark. So we've been traveling around the country.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember the conversation in the shed that day.
In the facility.
Yeah, the facility shed. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
But yes, I remember that. That now it just totally, I see the picture now.
Yeah, so the song Just Fishing is basically Trace, and you wrote it. And I asked you at the time what your inspiration was for that song, because I wouldn't say it's the reason we're doing this baseball tour, but the message of the song fits exactly with why we're doing this. We are Yankees fans. We do enjoy baseball. We do like traveling together. But from my perspective, we're not doing this because of baseball or the Yankees.
Right.
We're doing this to spend time together, a father and a son.
Exactly.
And I shared that with you that day, and I wasn't planning on starting our conversation with you talking about that song, but the way I've led into it, I guess now would be a good time. But you told me how you were inspired to write that song, and you talked about your sons trying to get in their lives.
Yes.
And when you ask them just straight up, it's like pretty much,
That's right.
a stiff wall. But then you learned if we go out and play catch or if we whatever, they just open up.
You have a great memory.
So tell about that song.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I think doing things with your kids, I mean, nothing matters more in my life especially after Jesus Christ, it's my family, and I want to be. You want to know your kids, and you want to be there for them, and you find out fast that they're just not going to open up real quick. They don't open up easily, especially when you ask them. So it's got to be a situation. And I found out when we were playing catch with a baseball or a football or ping pong, stuff starts coming out, you know, and I don't have to pry, And so, you're just doing stuff. So how's it going, and you're throwing, and they think we're playing catch, but I'm like, nah, this is not. It's way more than that. And honestly, after the 3 boys, I had my first girl, and then I remember that little fake, little, I don't know what it's called, one of the Fisher-Price pink fishing rods. Yeah, and I, honestly, in that situation, that one, it was kind of a business decision between the co-writer and myself. He said, he was like, look, there's a lot of people coming up that don't have sons, they have daughters. So, and I go, well, and we're thinking about that. And I said, plus it sounds way better. So he thinks, whatever, we're just fishing. Yeah. Rather than he thinks we're playing catch. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't. So we went for that route. Yeah.
Like the fishing metaphor instead of.
Yes. And she thinks, and that's the same thing with her. I found out with my daughters, both of them. Later on in life, we had the big surprise blessing daughter. And so we still go fishing. And it's just, when you're doing stuff that you're not really focusing on your kids, like probably when you're driving on the ride, when the song comes on,
windshield time.
Yeah, you're just like, man, it's you think we're taking this long road trip and all this, but that's when the stuff comes out. Or when you're fishing, you just go, so what's up? And then that's it. And that's when I've always found out the most about my children. Yeah.
And you really get opportunities to pour into your kids in those moments.
Oh, totally.
And so it's interesting. We're going to write a book about this. And what I actually talked to you about way back then was eventually I'd like you to write a foreword, which you agreed to already. So because you wrote the song that perfectly describes what we're trying to do. But when this book is written, it's going to be, I think, I'm still mulling over in my head what it's going to look like. But I'm landing on it being really a challenge to dads to spend time with your kids for the sake of passing along faith and values. And there's no other formula for that other than time. And a lot of people, so from that perspective, I'm a ministry guy, and people kind of think, well, he must just be talking to his kids about Jesus all the time, quoting scripture all the time, praying, whatever. There's actually not a lot of that going on.
No.
There's some, no question.
Right.
But we're going to baseball games.
Right.
We're traveling. We're seeing the sights. We're checking into hotels. But then when a moment comes up that's teachable, it's just poignant. And it's right there, and it's real life.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Talk to me in 20 years how it plans out, right?
Right, exactly.
But we'll see the impact. But anyway, that song was why I wanted to meet you that day, to thank you for writing that song. Turned into that great conversation. And ever since then, I thought, man, if I ever get a chance to sit down with Casey on this podcast, I would love it. And so thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the beginning of your story.
I was born in California, outside of L.A.
And raised in a Christian home, or did you come to Christ later?
No, I didn't. I came to Christ about 24.
So talk about kind of your journey, your faith journey.
I was. I just grew up in a really loving, very loving family between my dad and mom. Were great, very great parents on their own, but they because Dad traveled a lot as a football scout. They couldn't keep it together, and so they got divorced when I was about 6, and so I split my life between. My dad ended up moving to Florida to be with the Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins, and Mom was living in Southern California, so I split time. And but I had really, I know now my dad says that he grew up going to church, but they never followed along with us. They never. So we grew up in a moral say your prayers, and we knew that there was a God, but I was never saved. I was never any of that. I rarely went to church. Can't remember when I went to church, really. I mean, we went in the church. There was a church by the baseball field, a big Catholic church, and it was when you had, in between games, we'd go up and dare each other to go run in that big, scary church, because that was like, wow, man, back in the day with the big guy, they're standing over the thing and the statues, and it's dark, and that music going on. You're going, man, let's go play something in that, It was kind of spooky, but we thought, at the time. But I think there was always, I look back now at my life and know, it's just crazy, I just know I was his. I knew it looking back now, because I understand him now, and I understand how he kept me and held me all through all that time. And so I grew up, my mother was an alcoholic. My dad just was a great man, but he had a lot of, he worked hard and had a lot of fun, but his favorite thing was his children. He spent a lot of time with them, and he disciplined us. He loved us in every way you can. The most humble guy I know. Had fun playing sports, flag football with his buddy, touch football. So I got to see everything. He was our hero, and he was looking back now, a very good example of Christ without even knowing it. But his parents were religious, and he got, I don't even know what it's called, whatever you get when you're young. No, I've been through the whatever.
Confirmation.
Yeah, one of those
dedicated
things.
Or
yeah, one of those things.
Yeah.
And so, I got that when I was young, and I was like, okay, but we didn't know it. I didn't know it.
Yep.
Yep. And so, but I grew up, seeing that. My mother was an awesome mom, but she loved to party and drank a lot, was very responsible with us, but did a lot of things on alcohol, and so I saw that. I saw that was big part of her life. So by the time when I moved to Virginia when I was 11 years old, because Dad got the Redskins job.
Just for everybody wondering, like, what the heck is this NFL stuff? Just tell quick what your dad did.
My dad grew up in sports. He played sports. His brother went to Southern Cal and was a first-round draft pick quarterback and played for years in the NFL. And Dad went a different route and because all of his friends, he kind of got, someone asked him if he wanted to be a scout. He loved sports, so he said, yeah. It was like Al Davis from the Raiders asked him if he wanted to be a scout. My dad roomed with John Madden in college.
Wow.
And so there were just friends. He was networking, knowing people. He loved the sport. He got drug into the football, NFL as a scout early, and then all of a sudden he's just a very good judge of talent, character, and that type of stuff. And he became a player personnel director with the Dolphins and the Redskins, and the general manager of the Redskins and the Chargers, and about 40 years, and went into the Hall of Fame about, I don't know, 5 years ago. It was so that's how we grew up in training camps as little kids running around amongst all of our heroes. All these people in the NFL. It was nothing anymore.
Yeah.
It was not a big deal.
Yeah.
And so we were never really, starstruck or that type of stuff. But
which is kind of cool. That kind of rolls into your career now.
Right.
Like you're around all these big time people
that
are getting mobbed by fans and all this, and it's just like puts his pants on the same way.
Exactly.
What's the big deal?
That's right. And it helps in all the. It just helps sort out life when you watch my dad, how he handled himself in the NFL. Being around my dad and working in these power positions, and how he was so humble and how he was so normal.
Yeah.
And he taught us. You watch it. We'd walk in with him to camp every day, in the office every day, and it was from the janitor on up. He treated nobody any differently.
That's awesome.
And that was always how he was, and everybody loved him that way. He was laid back. Wait, he's the general manager. I think he was like, come on, stop that. He that's how he carried himself. So we kind of followed in those footsteps, and it was so Christ-like that he didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And and it wasn't until his later on years that we talked to him about the Lord and that relationship. So it's changed now, but I mean, thankfully, because it's especially in the last couple of years, I had to know about his salvation.
Yeah.
So
you've had those conversations with him?
Yeah, all the time, every day. That's what I go over there.
Where does he live now?
He lives in Franklin, Tennessee.
Nearby you?
Yeah, he's been there quite a while. Since a lot of the kids, grandkids, and everybody moved to this area.
Okay.
He moved here also.
By the way, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, people aren't used to hearing all this noise behind us because we're usually recording in a studio.
Yeah.
We're in this ballroom media center thing with people in different booths doing interviews. You'll see a picture of Casey and I up on our social media pages. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Christian Crusaders, or CC Radio and Internet Ministry. Anyway, if you're wondering what all that noise is, that's what it is, and we don't care. It's cool.
Yeah.
But I just want to give people permission to not be stressed out about the background noise because we're not stressed out about it.
Well, I'll make it real quick, is when Dad went to the Redskins, Mom stayed out there she had some family out there in California. We'd go back and forth. She got sick, and so she stopped drinking and doing all these things, but we go visit her. But she was just a happy-go-lucky mother and wanted to have fun with us, so she started letting us consume when we were in our early teens. You could drink beer and hang out with her and sit around with her family, and that's what they did. And so I grew up. That's what was part of my life in high school and then in college, running crazy. And but I knew in college, after I played football at a little school at Elon College in North Carolina, and had a buddy there that was running hard with me, great guy, athlete type guy, but we were going to be a duo at some point. And he moved back to Virginia with me out of college, and that's not where music is, but I started hitting bars because he had to get a job, but he was running crazy still. I was bouncing bars and playing in bars, and all of a sudden, it's just crazy that, the way the Lord works. But by the time I set a timeline, I said, hey, to my buddy, I said, look, I'm going to Nashville because someone told me I should in a bar one night after singing. I was like, is that where it is? And he's like, yeah. So I said, I'm going to Nashville when my lease is up. And this other guy, Mike, says, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm trying to keep these jobs and blah, blah, blah. And then he got put in jail for drunk driving. And then a second time and all these things. And I left. I went to Nashville. And then I heard a rumor that, from old college buddies, you hear about this guy, our friend, or Mike? Man, they said he got woke up in a jail by Jesus. Man, he's lost his mind. He's crazy. And he just had to, change his life. And I was like, wow, that's wild. I mean, that's radical stuff. I mean, stuff that I knew that I heard about religion.
You had no category for it.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, wow, that's crazy, man. Okay, whatever. And and I'd lost touch with him for about a year and a half, and next thing you know, he was going to. Then the rumor was he was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, going to a big Christian college there. I mean,
like Oral Roberts.
Roberts. That's exactly where. University to go study, get a degree in
theology or
theology. And my dad happened to go. He was on a scouting combine conference like this in Tulsa, and he goes, "Hey man, what are you doing?" He calls me when I'm in Nashville, and he's in whatever, and he's like, "Why don't you meet me in Tulsa if you could, and we'll just hang out. I'd like to see you." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm off this weekend." I was working just a couple of crummy bars when I moved here, just trying to make it. And I went there, and I was like, "I heard Mike is here. I'm gonna look him up." Somehow I got in touch with him. We hung out, went over to the campus. He's the same Mike, but
has the
changed.
Lord.
He's changed. Yeah, he's totally him, and he's just a different guy. And that's where it all happened. That's where I was just like,
I mean, did it happen like that?
No,
or like
we hung out, played basketball together. He didn't force any. He didn't beat me up about it.
I was going to ask you about that.
No, he was just. It clicked with me because we hung out, and he was like, man, so what are you doing? You go to church or anything? I'm like, no, man, no. I don't know, yeah, Mike, I believe in God. I don't know. And he's like, yeah, man. And then the day I was leaving, I go, but I don't know. That's an intimidating book, man. I don't know how to do that. And the day I was leaving, he brought me he had this like 365-day Bible. Mm-hmm. It was just like a one today, like a passage, devotional, and then a thing, part. And I was like, oh, I could do this. And then, so I started on that. Then he was moving across. Then all of a sudden it got wackier. It's like, he called me once and goes, man, the Lord told me I'm graduated, and the Lord told me I needed to open a church in East Tennessee or something. I was like, the Lord told you. Okay, whatever. And he's like, so I'm passing through, and me and my wife, he had a wife and a kid, and can we stay at your house? And I was like, yeah, it's on the way. And I was hungry at the time.
Wow.
I was probably 24, and I had a couple kids too, and I had a few roommates, a couple kids. We'd never been crazy. My wife is steady; she doesn't do any of that stuff. But I like drinking beer at the time and just having fun on it. But I was responsible, nothing crazy, and writing songs, and life was good. He came by and hung out. Same old Mike, crazy as ever, but in a different way. Fun, and his life would change. He had joy,
Wow.
And he asked me again, so you ever going to church? I go, yeah, we actually did. This heating and AC guy fixing our thing out here invited us over to down here, and he goes, where are you going to church? And I go, it's called the something Church of Christ. This is going to, I don't know, and he's kind of laughed, and he goes, how you like it? And I said, well, it's kind of strict. I mean, it's kind of different. And I go, and he goes, well, maybe it's not the right one. He goes, just give it a chance. Just keep going. You'll know the right church when you find it. And I was like, okay. And I go, here's the thing, Mike. I like my Copenhagen, and I still drink beer now and then. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, well, just bring it. Don't worry about that. He goes, just get to know Jesus.
Awesome.
That's all he said. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, man, I just say just bring it, you can bring all that with you,
Right.
You don't have to quit. You don't have to clean up to meet the Lord.
Right.
And I just didn't have any idea what he was talking about.
That's awesome.
But I didn't realize that it was like a trap, that the Lord ends up taking the want to out of you,
So
without trying.
What's that guy doing now?
He is still in East Tennessee, as last I heard. It's been a while. I don't know. I haven't heard from him in a while. But he started the church. He planted the church somewhere in East Tennessee, and he's still a pastor. And just
does he know the role he played in your life?
No, he doesn't. And I've been trying to, and I can't find the right guy, his right name. And so I can't. I don't know. He's just trying to get. Here's the thing: is that what I've heard, he's tried to separate himself from his past. So he's just off.
Yep.
He didn't like. It's like he went so radical and so fast. He didn't want to be associated with anything in his past. Because it was crazy,
Wow.
And so I can't find him.
So I mean, is there a time when you said, "Okay, Lord"?
Yes.
Like, was this at one of the churches you landed at?
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And Susan was like, Susan, I'm on a recon mission. I'm going to go find a church. And I found a church up here or down the road. I forget, it was called Spirit of Life, and it was just they called it some non-denominational church. Went in, there was a guy in there, and wasn't all dressed up, and they were singing and praising the Lord, and the guy was talking about his life, and he was talking about Jesus as a guy, and the Lord. So they're talking about God as a, and Jesus as a guy, and his applying his own testimony, and it was just so real to me. It made so much sense to me. I was like, wow, I knew it. I knew I found the church. And then there was a time,
receive
were bold
Christ.
enough, right?
Yeah.
And so I finally did.
Did your wife come to Christ before or after you?
Yeah, she'd been walking with the Lord for her whole life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was she hanging out with you for?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I think that's what it was. I think now I know the Holy Spirit led me to her, and the Spirit just knew, and I knew in her, and that's what attracted me to her.
That's awesome. So before I get into the next thing I want to talk to you about, something you said made me remember something that I need to give a shout out to right now, because there may be people listening to this who are kind of on the outside. They're like, that Bible is intimidating. It's a big book. We do a daily devotional podcast on this ministry. So the website or wherever you're listening to this podcast, we have another one just like it called the CC Podcast Daily Dose Devotions, where we're doing a Bible overview. It's a 6-minute devotion that I do, an audio thing, 6 days a week. And it's just we're in the book of Mark right now. And we're just taking a passage at a time. And so if you're somebody listening to this who is intimidated by the Bible and who doesn't know where to start, I'd say jump on the podcast with us, because it'd be a great way to get introduced to Scripture. So that just reminded me to.
Amen. Because I was like that, and Mike was saying, well, and I used that one he gave me, but then he said, or start in one of the Gospels where it might make a little. Start with the Book of John and whatever or something. And I'm just here I could tell y'all that. I don't even. As far as the Bible goes and the character of Jesus and knowing him and knowing Scripture, nobody was further lost than me. And to know that that's all I do, that's what I do now. I love it so much. I eat it up. I can't.
That's awesome.
It's everything to me. And I if he can do that work in me, that I was like, okay, where do you start? How do you do this?
Amen.
Then it's going to, the process, the journey. It's just.
He can do that with anyone.
Right. He could do it with, absolutely, if he could do it with me.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that you were playing in bars, so you obviously had a musical background. When did you pick that up?
Yeah, my mother, my mother and her side of the family, piano, songs, Christmas carols, everything, all the time.
Do you only play guitar, or do you do
I just
keyboard?
play guitar.
Okay.
And I've got two daughters that play piano. My wife plays a little piano. My sister plays piano. My mom did. Her family did, but that's all I do.
So you said that you had this guy, Mike, who was going to be a duo with you, a musical duo, I assume.
Yeah.
And you were moving to Nashville because someone in some bar that you were playing in, you must have had good enough chops that they're like, you got to go give this a try. So at what point did you realize, like, instead of going down the football road, I'm going to go down the music road?
Right. I think it was a real early thing. That's what I look back and go, that's why I pass on to people. If you've got a thing, a gift, a passion in you that just doesn't go away. I look back at my life and I remember, 6 years old, my mom saw something enough to go, you need to go to this vocal coach. Nobody else in none of my siblings, just me, and she took me, and then into guitar lessons at like 8 years old. And so she saw something in the past. She saw something in that, and she nurtured it. So that's what I do with my kids. If I see something or know, you nurture it and you help them and see if it goes away or not. And if it, she nurtured it and it stuck with me all the way through high school, and every chance I could sing, and I was singing with the radio, but I didn't know how you did that. I didn't know how do you get on the radio? How do you get to that place? But I did know how to become a football player or a scout. And so I was like, that was the fallback. Maybe I'll be both. You're young and you're dumb. Probably be both. I might, And so, and you grow as big as you're going to grow. And the football dream kind of. I was playing music in college. Mike and I were playing music. He played better than I did, so that's why we had to be a duo, because he played better guitar than I did. So, but anyways, and I was doing that, and that was a dream, but still a pipe dream.
Yeah.
Like, who does that?
So, would you consider yourself a singer-songwriter or just a songwriter?
No, I would say singer-songwriter. When I moved to Nashville, I got a record deal first, and I was going to be. I made a record for Capitol Records, but. I wasn't. Yeah, I made a record. I thought it was good music and stuff, but it's just a weird thing. I hated being on stage part.
Really?
Yeah, it's just
most people, that's all they want.
I know that's what it is.
That are in the business.
That's what it is, and I think it came from watching my dad growing up. So humble, he didn't like being in. He was it was not a false humility. It was just a, oh man, no, you know.
He didn't want the attention.
Right. He didn't. And so when I got up in there, when I started that, I'd go up and sing, and it would sound good, but all of a sudden it started turning into where Kenny Chesney and Garth Brooks and Springsteen, all these guys are run. I mean, it was such a show. It was such a big show. Other than George Strait and Alan Jackson, these guys, they were kind of stand there
and sing.
But I was not. I wasn't Kenny, and I wasn't. That's what they were. It was turning into a great big show, and I just had trouble doing that. I was just insecure, couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
interesting.
And but not only that, it literally got just taken out of my life. I mean, when I was finishing my record, the label head all of a sudden just retired, and a new guy came in, and it was kind of butted heads on the project of what I was doing. He didn't see the way he wanted to redo it into something more commercial and more something not what I liked, and it just it got taken away, you know. And at the same time, all of a sudden, somebody liked one of my songs that I did not record, and you're like, oh well.
Was that hard to have it taken away, or was it just kind of a natural, okay, I guess I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to be a songwriter, and that's all great?
It was at first, because, you know, your pride, and, you know, you see your peers and your friends going, yeah, I got a record, they're doing their thing, but like, man, I could sing and write too, but I'm waiting, and I want to try to make it work. But then at the same time, with my wife, you know, we had 2, maybe 3 kids while I was trying to do that, and I don't think. Now I look back and go, man, you took a young 25, 26-year-old and make all these people that think he's something and put him on the road with his friends in that situation.
That blows up families,
right? It would not have been good. Yeah, and so, you know, there's too much stuff out there. Yeah, but, you know, so I just I became a songwriter, and it's been fine.
Yeah.
You know?
So how would you say today, you know, you view your songwriter, like, so you're a man of God.
Yes.
You walk with the Lord.
Right.
And so if that's true, I assume, just like all of us, that everything we do is unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Now, it might not be Jesus, Jesus, Jesus all the time. Like I was saying on our road trips with Mason, it's not like we're just quoting scripture and praying all the time.
Right.
So it doesn't have to look a certain way. But in your heart, you must be pretty convinced that what you're doing is unto the Lord. What does that look like for you?
Well, yeah, it's changed. It's definitely changed. I guess you'd call it the sanctification process.
Yeah.
You know, coming up, I got saved and realized, you know, yes, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I'm not sure I believed him. You know, I'm not sure he was my Lord and Savior, but he was not the Lord of my life.
Yeah.
And so I was walking with him and trying to walk the line, but at the same time, there were things I wasn't going to let him have.
That's such a great description. So many people, we're all in that stage at some level, right?
Right. And so I was like, man, it's just it'll put me on stage. I mean, if I get a number one, I'll get on a stage and I'll get to say thanks to him. So I'll say his name on stage. That's how I thought of it, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, I know I'm writing I am guilty of my entire career really writing what I know, you know, in my life. And and almost guilty to a fault. Like something, I'm not going to write it if I just don't, you know, if it's not
part of you.
Yeah, part of me. That's not the way, you know. So I write what I know. So I've written some drinking songs that, granted, I don't drink Jose Cuervo. I wrote a fun song with 10 rounds of Jose Cuervo.
I can sing it right now.
With a friend of mine that had that story, you know. I was like, and we just had a blast. It was one of my best friends, had a great time. I don't think I've ever drank
10 rounds of Jose Cuervo.
Or one shot of tequila. I wouldn't do it. I know it. I would drink beer occasionally. And that's it.
Yep.
And, so we wrote it and had fun. And next thing you know, it got recorded. And I'll tell you a great story. This is where you talk about doing it unto the Lord. This is one of the biggest convictions I had was in a startup church in my town now, Thompson Station out there. There was a new church, so we moved out there, and we're in a little church, and we split up in small groups certain nights, and I'm over at the preacher, someone's house at a small group, and we're studying something in the book, and actually our pastor was in this group, and maybe there were certain things that I wasn't trying to keep hidden. I just never offered them out there. When you're walking in the church, trying to figure out how to walk better with the Lord. And but one night we were in a study, and he was like, "Well, this is what you do to keep strong," and blah blah blah. I don't know what we were studying, but and to get through the life, you lean on whatever. And then the pastor goes, or to get through some of those real tough times, you could just have 10 rounds with Jose Cuervo, can't you, Casey? And I was like, oh. So I guess the cat's out of the bag. I wrote that. And basically, how do you justify that? And I go, man, you better watch out what you do, because people are watching and you are listening, so you want to, yeah.
So that's one of the things I want to talk to you about. And you won't remember this, but when we first met in that football shed facility in Iowa City, and I was thanking you for that song, Just Fishing.
Right.
And you made the comment to me, you said something along the lines of, looking back, there are some songs that I kind of wish I hadn't have been part of, but at the same time, those are songs that kind of gave me the platform that I have now. And has that been a struggle? Like, I always wonder with artists, Denzel Washington is my favorite actor of all time.
Right.
You know Denzel?
Yes.
Great movies.
Yes.
Some of the roles he's played, he's a Christian. He's a professing Christian, and I think that it's genuine, because I've read a bunch about him. You were going to say
some great words sometimes. He brings it. Yeah.
And so, I'm not saying this can't happen, but I'm just curious. Like, for an artist, where is the line? Where is the line? Is it okay to write 10 rounds of Jose Cuervo? I personally, in the umbrella of Christian freedom, I think it is. Well, but so how have you navigated that? You've indicated by what you just said that has changed over time for you.
Absolutely.
But how do you even navigate that today?
Well, yeah. So it's a tough thing at the time. You look at it like, look, and I got to make money for my. Also, my relationship with Christ has grown so much. There's a lot of things I didn't understand.
Totally, we're all that way.
He's a forgiving God, and that's how I walked with Him. And He this and that, and it's all right. I know you can't. Well, there were just things in my life that I was going to control, and that were off the table. And I could do this, but it's for the money. And if I get up there, I'll thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though I look back and it's almost blasphemous. I'm like, thank the Lord. The Lord's like, look, I didn't have anything to do with that song. You wrote that song, dude. But I've said that a lot of times. I go, man, I wrote this song against His will. I wrote this song. We did this, and but it gives you a platform to be able to say more stuff. But not only that, I look at it this way. And when I was reading some of your things, which you text me, I was like, it gives me, it's like when Jesus tried to preach in His hometown, it's tough because people are like, wait, that guy, you can't be Jesus. I've seen you used to just be this guy working on, be a carpenter or whatever you did, you're not the Messiah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not, you're whatever you say, it's not going to work here. You couldn't make any miracles happen because they don't believe them.
Right.
So now a lot of people could look at me, and the further I've gone in my walk, the deeper in how it's changed, the transformation in our lives. I look at it like this, as going, wait, that's the guy that wrote 10 Rounds with Jose Cuervo or Drinking Bone or whatever. And you're like, look what the Lord's done with him.
Totally.
Look where it's brought him. That's crazy. And that's one thing. Or they can go, I don't buy it. I don't buy it, or look what the Lord's done. So, and I can't control that. All I know is that, yes, I've been convicted on all fronts in those things when I've done it. When you deal with them, but it's changed and it's gotten way more. Now it's not a legalistic off the table thing. It's just like I'm not gonna say, I'm just not going to do that. You know, like as far as like, and I'll be honest with you, like Drinking Bone, I could justify that all day long. I say, look,
I love that song.
Yeah, I like people. The party guy that's singing, I go, yeah, you know what? It's true. The more you drink, and the more you get in trouble. Yeah. That's what it is.
So I'm going to do this. This is so weird.
Yeah.
I said to my wife, I'm going to sing on this podcast. And you can jump in if you want, but the drinking bone's connected to the party bone. The party bone's connected to the staying out all night long. She won't think it's funny, and I'll wind up all alone. And the lonely bone's connected to the drinking bone.
Right.
That song.
It turns into a cycle and it never stops.
That song basically says don't drink.
Exactly.
I have no problem with that song.
That's right. It's kind of it's one of the non-drinking song. I've always called it that. I'm not condoning it, and people go, man, you're a party, blah, blah, blah. It's like when I write, my quest, it always is to, even more to trick people in country music, especially of late, just to, if I could say you instead of her, and write it in first person.
Song about the Lord.
Yeah. I love to hear people think they're singing about the girl or the guy, but they're singing to the Lord. And if I can do that, then my job is done.
I'm just going through I'm on your Wikipedia page, some of the songs you've written. This is along the vein of what we're talking about. A song by Eric Church, Hell of a View. Right. Now, there are some really, really strict Christians who go, oh, you can't say hell in a song. You're a Christian, and the word hell is in your song?
Right.
I guess I am a little less legalistic than maybe some people would want to be about that. But that just must be something that you've just had to navigate and be like, you know what? It is what it is. It was what it was when it was in your past.
Right.
And Denzel Washington has to say, hey, I'm going to play this character.
Yeah.
And there are going to be some language and some scenes that maybe some people have a problem with, but the overall message is a redeeming message, and the Lord's called me to do this, and my critics can say what they want, but I'm accountable to the Lord.
Yeah, and I look at the overall view of that song. I'm with you on it. The whole idea of that, the first pitch of that song was from one of the co-writers. Man, it ain't always heaven, life, but it's a hell of a view.
Yeah.
That and it was just all it was the play on the heaven and hell, and it's like, and I remember talking about it, and originally it was like, yeah, and I could justify that by going, first of all, because the Lord knows my heart, and heck of a view just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So He knows my heart.
That's
so
right.
and first of all, the point was, life isn't always easy, but he builds us in that time. In the hell, he's building. It's a good. He could show us something in the hell. That's that's the way. I mean, so I was justifying going. We could. And I don't care if people see it that way. But and honestly, I don't. Yeah, it's a young couple hanging on to what they got, not the money, not the stuff. I like the message of the song.
Yep.
I'm not going to say I think it's okay to just go, it's a hell of a view. It's kind of glamorizing hell, but I don't think it is. And the Lord knows where it came from.
Totally. And that's what I think is important. And even for our audience, this isn't just a burden that a Christian songwriter deals with. We all do.
Right.
Like where is it okay for me to do what I think the Lord's called me to do that some Christians might have a problem with?
Right.
Like, I'm accountable to God.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. You're not going to you don't stand in judgment of your peers. You don't, when you leave this earth, or when you're, on the judgment day or whatever, my pastor just said this 2 days ago. He goes, because, when it's all over and we're standing at the judgment seat of our peers, and he goes, No.
Judgment seat of Christ.
It's Christ. It's His God. We don't answer to them, so we don't have to follow our peers.
Amen.
It's like man, when I got that, when I started to believe God and trust Him, believe Him, not just believe in Him, believe His word and go, no, He means it. He knows this is it. Then the change come up. The freedom is like,
totally.
Oh my goodness,
freedom.
I could walk in Him and I don't have to worry about, as long as I'm walking Him, it will obey the human laws or whatever. Yeah. But I don't have to be in fear of what you people put on me.
And
I don't.
And I mean, if you're doing something that's flat out sin, I mean, of course, that's not okay. But
no, that's what I'm saying. If it falls, when you listen to him, and the Holy Spirit convicts you in everything you're doing, then I don't need your laws. I don't even need your laws because I'm going to be okay with my Lord. I'm good,
That's good. Just because I want to go through some of these songs. I mean, it's such a great list, and this you've written way more than this. You said even when we were offline, you need to release a record with a bunch of songs that haven't made the radio, and I'd be one of the first to buy it. By the way, on my Apple or my Amazon Music app, I could show it to you. I won't. I have a playlist. It's just Casey Beathard songs, and so I mean, here's some of them, like Jesus Does, Eric Church. So one of the things we didn't talk about is this platform that you've earned,
right?
Which has been built in part by quote unquote a couple party songs, has allowed you to write some stuff that's a little more. Yeah, you've gained the clout to write stuff that's a little more. Right. Openly redeeming or honoring to Christ.
And you can almost see from my career and through the songs that I've come through and gone through, you could tell where I was in my life.
Like Sanctification, you can see it in the songs.
Yeah, you could see it and where I was.
One of my favorite songs by Eric Church is Homeboy.
Yes.
That is people, if you haven't heard Homeboy, this is a powerful song about a prodigal.
Totally, that's what it is. It's a prodigal.
And I've got a brother in my life who was like this.
Yes.
And it's the deep prayer of an older brother going, I hope you come back home.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Totally.
I'm getting choked up here.
Yeah.
The Boys of Fall. Yeah. I mean, a football song, just awesome that Kenny Chesney recorded.
Right.
The Breath You Take, George Strait.
Yeah.
That's a powerful song about just what's your priority.
Yeah, what are you doing in life?
Yeah.
It's not about it's the moments that take your breath away instead of the just breathing.
Don't Blink, Kenny Chesney.
Yeah.
Just a reminder of the passage of time, and you better be making it count. Yeah. We in my house, George Strait is the king.
Yeah.
And my daughters especially love How About Them Cowgirls. Yeah. My wife was raised on a cattle farm, so she's kind of a cowgirl in her own right.
That's awesome.
Tracy Lawrence, Find Out Who Your Friends Are.
Yeah.
When you wrote it, did you know they were going to do that collab with?
No, I didn't.
It's
like a full
Kenny
circle.
Chesney and Tim McGraw
and Tracy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Drinking Bone by Tracy Bird. You got to go listen to the song if you haven't. I would recommend it highly. No Shoes, No Shirt, No Problem. This song reminds me, that's Kenny Chesney, of something that I've always said. Like some really strict, what I would say legalistic Christians would look at me and go, "You let your kids listen to that music, that country music?" It's like, yeah, I do. We listen to a little bit of Def Leppard too.
Yeah.
And we listen to a little bit of whatever.
Right.
And they say, well, that's not godly music, and there's all this sex in it. And what I always say is, if you interpret this music through the lens of a Christian marriage, it's all okay.
Yes.
And so the reason I was laughing about No Shoes, No Shirt, No Problem, isn't there like a sexual innuendo in that? It's like, babe, no shoes, no shirt, no problem.
Yeah, definitely. If it's you could definitely look at it that way. It just fell out one day while I was sitting on the couch, and it was actually an old quote from Jeff Spicoli in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He said it in that movie. No shoes, no shirt, no problem, man, or dude, or whatever. And it just fell out.
I didn't know this, but on this Wikipedia page, it tells what dates they're released.
Wow.
Aaron Tippin, Where the Stars and Stripes and the Eagle Fly was released 6 days after 9/11.
Right. It was written
before that.
It was written way before that.
But they were just like, let's crank this thing out.
It was too patriotic. The label. That's where Aaron is. That's where we were
before 9/11.
Yes.
It was too patriotic.
Yep.
And then after 9/11, they got green light.
The label said, "Oh, what about that song? We could probably," and they were like,
"Wow."
It was sad. It was sad. We wrote that about 7 months before 9/11.
So there's a lot of politics in all this.
Oh yes.
Tell me about the process of writing music. Are you more the lyric guy or the music guy, or both?
Both, but almost compulsive about lyric.
Okay.
Yeah,
like OCD about
yeah,
lyrics.
Totally.
So
yeah.
Just a couple weeks ago, my 14-year-old daughter had an English project to write a 14-line sonnet. And so she's at home asking us, like, how do you write a sonnet? It's got to have all this meter and all this rhyming. And so we're laying there and we're kind of writing this poem. I'm helping her like come up with lines for this sonnet.
It's fun, right?
And I could see putting words together. I mean, it's extremely hard to do it. I mean, I'm not saying I'm some pro, but I mean, we were able to slap together this kind of corny sonnet. But the thing that just makes my head explode in trying to comprehend how it even happens is the music and the lyric. It just seems impossible to me. So what's your process?
Both. Sometimes it's the music. I've got a phone full of melody and different tracks of melody that I sing with mumbles on it.
And this melody just comes to you?
Yeah, usually when I'm walking or they're just walking. I mean, it's constant. I don't stop humming or thinking or whatever.
You should have jumped in with me on Drinking Bone there. I'm disappointed you
That's
didn't.
right. That's right. But and I'm watching life always, listening to people talk and hearing a title and having to, just retreat for a second and put it down on my phone or.
Two things that I can relate to as I hear you talk about that. One is I do a little bit of preaching.
Right.
Or I do this podcast where we're doing a Bible overview.
Yeah.
And you're always watching and observing and listening for an illustration.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that.
Totally.
And then I'm in the process of buying some screen printing stuff.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to print my own T-shirts.
Yeah.
Just with whatever message.
You want T-shirts.
And
man.
I mean, I've got a list on my phone of T-shirt ideas.
That's so awesome.
But that's a little bit like what you're talking about.
Totally. I mean, those are titles. That's it. Let's write this. Let's do this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I'm watching live that, hey, what's up, homeboy? What's up, Holmes? Just stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Hear that and go,
homeboy.
That's something. That's
Guys,
something.
The song Homeboy by Eric Church, you've got to listen to this song. It's a brilliant, brilliant song.
And it's where I was. It was my second son was going through that at the time. And they and CJ and coming home from a football practice. I'm out there in the yard, was weed eating, and they got out of the car from football practice in the summertime walking up, and I just went, they're just cutting up laughing. And I said, man, I'm so thankful my kids are raised and love each other, know the Lord, but they love each other so much. I said, I know if either one of them, if Tuck ever got too lost, I just saw it on him while the weed eater's going. I was just looking at him and I waved at him and I thought he'd go find him. We'd go find him if he ever got too lost.
He'd come home, boy.
Yeah, we'd get him. And that's where the whole wheel started turning. And so those type things.
Love it. So you're more the lyric guy,
yes,
than the music guy, but you do some music too.
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, I'm on again. It's tough when you to. I'm not. It's not really tough. I got a few that are few friends that we just gel and we collaborate a lot together. But I could be a little tough to try
work
to
with.
co-write. Yeah, because I want to
control it kind of.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure that as you kind of get older and get more seasoned and more experienced, you have a clearer idea of what you want to do. So that probably even gets even more so, right?
Well, yeah, a little bit. But then at the same time, now there's so many young kids you're mentoring or discipling or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten to a point where I've gone, they're a little more hip to what's going on. How you could say maybe we need more syllables if that's how they talk. If he wants to do that, then cool.
Yeah.
But let's not get too. I'm not going to go to some points where you guys would want to go. I'm not. I'm way past that.
Yeah. So I'm not asking you how much money you make or anything like that. But what's the process of getting paid as a songwriter? You were telling me offline that it's totally changed. I was asking you if I download Homeboy from Apple iTunes.
Yeah.
How much money are you going to see of that 99 cents or that $1.29?
I mean, it's not even pennies anymore. For the laws are written in Congress, they're not willing to change anything because they're beholden to the big tech companies that own everything. And so if you're not if you're not singing on it or own the master of the recording or producing, those guys they're the record labels and the singer are making the money. Even if they didn't write it, the singer didn't write the song. They're making the money, and then the writers, just if they don't have any piece of the track or the singing or backgrounds, they're not going to make.
So how do you make money? You don't?
For me anymore, I mean, the only way, the best way now is it's still always been the best way is to have hits on radio. Radio still plays. Terrestrial radio still pays.
Writers.
Whatever. Yeah, they pay the writers.
Oh, okay.
Like they're supposed to be paid.
Okay, so if I hear Homeboy on the radio,
right.
then how's that work?
That's being calculated up by the royalties company, the BMIs and ASCAPs and whatever the world and they're taking that in, and I still get paid quarterly by them and by yearly by my publisher, who goes. They tabulate all the downloads that you do get. You get something, and then all the record sales of the past and.
But
whatever.
The downloads are like a fraction.
Yeah, such a fraction.
So, what have been a couple of the highest, the songs that have been best to you in a financial sense?
Obviously, No Shoes.
No Shoes. I was going to say that. Is that the number one?
Yeah, that's got to be, because it's it was a solo. I wrote it myself, and
so you're not splitting up the money with anyone.
Not splitting it up, and it's been a timeless song.
They
play it every year, all the time, and so it's like not to compare it with some of those things, those cheeseburgers and whatever those are, those ones.
Yeah.
But those are fun outdoor songs. Summer's coming. Here it is.
Oh, I love it.
So that'll always be paid playing. But yeah, that one initially, when that happened early in my career, it kind of got me out of the hole of being, when you come to Nashville and you network and do your thing, and you might get signed by a publisher, and that a while ago that's how they did it. They give you a draw to support your writing habit, but everything you made would get paid back to them first. So you were never really making any money, and it might be 3 or 4 years before you make a hit song. And so now you have a big hole to dig out of getting advanced money,
Mm-hmm.
So that one got me out of that hole, and where I haven't really had to take any advanced money
awesome.
for a while. So
something we got to talk about, which I intended to open with, but because we opened with Just Fishing, we're just getting into it now. So I bleed black and gold. I've been a Hawkeye fan since I was. The 1985 season at Iowa was they were number one in the nation. I was 10 years old, and like you're like, that's very impressionable on a 10-year-old kid.
Man.
Having your team do well, Hayden Fry, Rose Bowl, Chuck Long, the whole deal. And so you guys just kind of came into the Hawkeye, world for a few years, and then you're kind of out. But from the time I was 10 years old, bucket list, near the top, and I wasn't sure it would ever happen, was I wanted to see the Hawkeyes play in the Rose Bowl. And I did. My son and my dad.
It wasn't fun, was it?
No, but you know what? We were there. It was 35-0 in the first half. And Ike tells me later, maybe I shouldn't say this, he said that the offense knew what the first play was going to be. They're standing on the sideline going, that run to McCaffrey that was the first touchdown. Yeah. It's like everyone knew that's what was going to be the play. What the heck?
Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah. It's 35-0. I'm there with my friends. I'm with my dad. I'm with my son. We have a picture of the two of them that's with Granddaddy at the Granddaddy, which is way cool. And I'm like, this is a bucket list thing happening. I didn't even care.
Yeah.
I honestly did not care that we were getting killed. And I've got some friends that think I'm crazy for that. But it was just like a dream that I'd had since I was 10 years old came true. And your son is largely responsible for making it happen.
That was awesome.
I was so excited to go to the Rose Bowl. This is just a confession. When we were in that Big Ten championship game, I was pretty sure that if we lost to Michigan State close, we were going to get the Rose Bowl.
So you were hoping
it wasn't. So you're kind of going, man, it'd be fun to win the Big Ten championship, but all these other fans sitting around us are so disappointed that we lost in the last play or whatever.
Oh man, that was tough.
But I'm sitting here going, I think we're going to Pasadena, baby, and so I wasn't disappointed at all. But I was telling my kids just a few days ago that I was going to be interviewing you, and my daughter, who is a rabid Hawkeye fan now, she was a little young then.
Yeah.
She's a big Luka Garza fan.
Oh, yeah.
And Hawkeye football, I mean, she has got no patience for anything less than perfection. You know, she's kind of crazy. But I'm saying, like, I'm interviewing CJB's dad, and so I pulled up the play at the Big Ten Championship to Tavon Smith.
Yes.
Just so awesome.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, I wanted to talk Hawkeye football with you at least a little bit. What are some of your greatest memories from being the quarterback's dad, Kirk Ferentz and the team and all that?
That was my wife and I will still say that was some like 5 of the best years of our lives. You know, just getting in to be in that family, to be part of it. And I'm talking about when he was redshirted, we started going up there, or even the first time we ever went on a visit. You know, it was just something like it was a last minute thing. You know, he was committed to go to Ole Miss and just, you know, came out of the blue like a god. You know, and it was, and I always knew. I mean, that everybody knew, being a football guy, and my dad knowing Kirk and all that. I just knew that he was a straight-up guy. I knew he was one of the best guys and best coaches, and, you know,
in football.
You couldn't get – I was well aware of the Hawkeye stuff, the family and the team. I'm not sure I knew where Iowa was. You know, but we went up and visited. And from that day on, visiting, I was just, like, sucked in. I said, these people, these people are real.
Yeah.
This guy, they run it right. And so – kind of figured we were probably in for the long haul. There was no promises. There was no nothing. It was just let's see how you develop guys, you know. And so that's why, you know, and it was just, I mean, going and watching, and some of it was frustrating. You know, it's always frustrating.
Right.
Probably watching the team, but some of it was frustrating as just a bystander watching and trying to just waiting your turn. Yeah.
That 12-0 season in 2015.
That was miraculous.
Along with Mason and I traveling around to see the Yankees play baseball, we've been in the process of seeing the Hawkeyes play in every Big Ten stadium.
Right.
And so during that season, we were at quite a few of the games on the road and at home. And that was an amazing season. I just saw a clip the other day from that wrestling match that was in the stadium before the Minnesota game.
Yep.
And that Minnesota game that we won was to go 10-0, which was going to be the best start in Hawkeye football season ever.
Yeah.
And there were a couple other games in that season.
And they wore all black that night.
That's so good.
That was awesome.
So, I mean, what do you remember from that season, or what are some highlights, like specific plays or games or road trips or any of that?
That night of the Minnesota deal, getting there early and knowing that. And I think they sold out the stadium for the wrestling first.
Yeah, it was.
They had to have 40 or 50.
It was like 45,000 people.
It was crazy
for a wrestling meet.
Yeah, so that was part of the fun, and that just made the, you know, tailgating longer, and you know, but it was fun, you know, hanging out. Just the people. I never met anybody I didn't like when I was around.
Were you kind of hero status because you were CJ's dad?
Yeah, later on, especially when his hair was and all that. Yeah, but actually he cut it though right before he started right. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was. It was kind of crazy. It was fun to know that you know you're not that songwriter guy. You're just CJ's dad.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It was pretty awesome and fun. But that night and.
You would have
then
been
going to Nebraska for the last game.
You would have been at the Nebraska game.
Yeah,
when we 12-0.
Yeah, it was a freezing cold game. That the feet
I
were
told
off.
my son, we were at my mother-in-law's for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I told Mason, if this game is for 12-0, we're driving over there.
Yeah.
And we get about an hour from home, left early that morning, and he throws up in the car.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, are we turning around? He's like, no, we're not turning around. So it ended up that he just had some orange juice on an empty stomach, and so he wasn't sick, but we froze our tails off.
Oh, that's
But what
awesome.
a great time.
What a great night. That was awesome.
I still remember Kanziri's touchdown to seal that deal late in the game.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
That was awesome. It was just, just so many games, every game.
Yeah.
Just the one that really sticks is out of the start of the season, like
that Pitt
game at home. That 52-yard field goal, and I remember, it was just
win the game.
It was miraculous. It was awesome.
That game, I don't know if you remember this, and you weren't around when it happened, but Brett Greenwood was a D-back for Iowa, who after he got done at Iowa was paralyzed.
Yep.
And they brought Brett Greenwood out to lead the team out. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And the place was going bananas because Pat Angerer was kind of helping him walk out. And then they also paid tribute to Tyler Sash, who had died a couple weeks before that. And so I've always said that two of the unsung heroes of that season, I think, are Greenwood and Sash, because the way that the crowd started out that game, because of the way that they kind of brought Greenwood and Sash into it, they were at fever pitch all night long. And then it was back and forth. They barely hang on. They win with that long field goal. And it's like, man, if Greenwood or Sash hadn't been part of the script that night, is it a different outcome? And if it's a different outcome, what happens to 12-0? Well, you don't get to 12-0, and you might get a lot less than that.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is. That's crazy. And by the way, I don't think it's relented at all, the passion for Hawkeye sports. I texted my CJ the other night. I'm like, how do you blow that? I mean,
you're still
so many
ops
to win. If we make some free throws, we win this game.
So you're still a Hawkeye.
Oh man, totally. The girls, I celebrated with them the other day. I was at my dad's on Sunday, just in front of the TV watching the girls play.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Love every part of it.
Well, obviously, you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
The final thing I think I want to talk about with you before you got to get going is a few minutes ago at the very beginning, you were talking to your dad about the Lord. And you said, especially the last couple years, I need to know where my dad stands.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's in reference to you losing Clay.
Yes.
So your son Clay,
right?
Who, I'll let you tell that story, but I'm just going to say a couple things before you do. The Butker family, Ike and Katie, have a son Clay now, who I know is named after your son Clay.
Yeah.
And also, and I'm going to try to find this link, and maybe you can help me find it. But one day I was traveling to Toronto from Iowa, driving. I stopped overnight in Detroit. I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see on Adrienne Butker's, it was just a week or two after his funeral, a link on her Facebook page about, you need to watch this funeral for Clay Beathard. And it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm in my hotel room watching this funeral, and I had your number from way back when we met before. And it was, and I kind of feel bad saying this, or I don't know if I'm saying it the right way, but because I certainly don't want to talk about your son's death in a way that's like it was inspiring, because you lost your son. I mean, that's horrific.
Right.
But that funeral was so real and so Christ exalting and so inspiring. And I had a text message typed out to you, and I thought, I don't even know if this guy's going to remember me. It's the middle of the night, and I don't even want to really bring this up. And so I've been hanging on to that for a couple years, but I thought you and your wife, in a terrible circumstance, and your whole family and the preacher.
Yes.
I mean, talk about taking a really, really bad situation and making the most out of it. And what I've heard since then, Adrienne and the Butkers have kind of kept me, up to speed about just how many people were impacted by that. But talk about Clay, talk about going through that. There are people, we just have some friends back home who lost a young son last week in a tragic thing. You're in a group of people who never, ever, ever want to walk that path. I watched this family that just went through this, some other friends we've had who've lost kids, your situation. I don't want to be part of that group, and now you're part of it.
Yeah. It's absolutely it's the worst case scenario you could draw up in a parent's life. That a phone call you get late at night, like something that you never like to hear them, but the phone go off late. But Clay loved the Lord. That's most important. He's a competitor. He had a lot of, he was a different guy that would just, he was a underdog fan, he was He liked to toe the line and do things the right way. He wanted to work. You know, he had dreams of being a Navy SEAL or something like, you know, doing that type of stuff. He wanted to fight for the downtrodden. You know, he pulled for those people. He thought you ought to do things the right way or don't do it. He was the cleaner of all our guns in the house. He took care of stuff. He wanted to be the man, that type of guy. But at the same time, you know, he had some righteous anger in him. You know that no, that's wrong. You don't do that. You know, and we had conversations about it. Well, you don't. And he never gotten fights, you know, like that, but a lot. But he would stand up. He would stand up and tell a coach, I don't think you should have kicked that guy out of the game. He did it because he got hit first, and that was wrong. That we were getting our butts kicked, and someone's got to stand up to a coach like that, where you got to respect your that type.
He's got the gumption to do that.
That's him, that kind of leader. Well, his buddy's getting his butt kicked at a bar. Clay was not drinking, not drunk. He had quit that because he was, and he went up to stand up for his buddy, and the guy, and a couple of guys, he had been through jail multiple times, and he pulled out something out of this. It's on video. I wouldn't watch it, but he just came out of nowhere with something out of the back of his pants, a shank, a knife, or something, and just killed him and one of Clay's good friends. And
killed another guy?
Both of them.
2 guys?
Yeah. Right there on his first night home for Christmas from college. And,
this 2019?
2019. And, so it was there. Immediately you wonder how you go, okay, now what? And I remember walking back in the house, and I'm like, now what? And we have a gate at our house. We live way off the road, so we have a gate. It's mechanically supposed to operate. And the first time in the 10 years we've had it, it broke about 3 days prior. And so I just pulled the pins on and left it open. And Susan's going, you got to get that fixed because we live too far. People come up and blah, blah, blah. And we've had, not weird. We've had some shady people come up and want stuff, something stolen before. But you got to get that fixed. And I said, it's Christmas time. It's not going to, I don't know if we'll get the guy out here. And so we left it alone. And so we walked back in the house that morning, and we're just, it's just dead silent. You're just trying to figure it out. And by afternoon, a couple of people just came and left stuff on the porch and knocked on the door, and I didn't know the custom. We don't know. We were not familiar with all this.
But what do you do when your son gets murdered?
Yeah.
That custom?
Yeah. So the love that started pouring in and the support was so overwhelming that I know that I look back and I go, God, I mean, if our gate had been, we would have kept it all out. He'd leave us alone. And then, of course, my pastor came over who had been through the same type thing. He lost a son on his way to college to leave in a car wreck. And so not too far, not too long, about 8 or 10 years before that. So he came over and we started talking, and he's the one that said, first of all, Casey, you didn't lose him. You know where he is. He's just there. He's on the other side of the veil. And I was like, okay, really, Steve? I mean, I need to know. I want to know what happens now. So to make a long story short, it was like, okay, and we just opened up the Bible as a family and as friends came over. We just all mourned together, and our house turned into a church for 3 weeks straight.
Wow.
Doing nothing, no TV, nothing mattered anymore. It was in the Bible. It was in his presence, and peace fell on that house. Like, it was unexplainable. I look back at that service, and when I started immediately learning out who God is and how real He is and the hope of heaven and the truth of it, what happens, all of a sudden I was like, oh my goodness, I mean, we're all leaving, and it, wasn't a long life, but it was a full life, and that's, and I wouldn't wish him back here for nothing, because I know, and then in ways it started transforming our family in a way that it was just, it could only be God, but I look back at that service, and I don't know how many people were there, probably 1,500, 2,000, I don't know, but it was the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life. I've ever felt in my life. I can't explain where the peace came, where the words came from, where anything came from. It just happened. And the people that got saved, and the people that gave their life to Christ, and then the ripple effect, and it's still going to that. I'm not sure I would be here today if that had not happened. The opportunities to speak about him, what he's done in our life because of it, because that's exactly what he does. I'm not, we could be here all day talking about the doctrine of the elect and, of election and all these things, and I could talk about who are his and all these things and how that goes, but, and what are the freedom he gives us, but at the same time, he knew exactly, I know that God knew exactly when Clay was going to come home.
Yeah, amen.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, I'm not saying that he knew, that's not the way he would have, if it,
our days are numbered before we're born.
And I look at it like, okay, I look at it this way. This one, for those out there that don't understand, this one I'm trying to say is that, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, this one, he's going to have the buck the system and thing, and he's going to stand up and try to do my job, and he's going to be crazy. And I'm going to get to him, and he's my son. He's my son. He's going to he's not going to have to lead all these people to Christ on his own like he thinks he's going to have to or whatever, because he's going to stand up in a situation, and I'm going to call him home.
And then he's going to
lead a little early, and then just watch what I do with this.
Wow.
And it's been, I mean, we stopped counting after 300 people that we could think of that have come to Christ, and the stories that continue to flow in. The opportunities I've had to go speak, out of state, about who Jesus is in our lives now, what it did to my family, my kids.
You had that conversation with your dad?
My dad. Because when you're sitting there going, I literally don't know what I would do if I didn't know the Lord, and if I didn't know he was saved. I think I could see me not wanting to be here anymore.
Yeah.
But now it's just it's a different kind of, I'm not saying the hope of heaven, it's the knowing of heaven.
Yes.
I know it, it's there.
The
it's
assurance.
Coming. That's what, it's that kind of hope, the assurance of it. And so it just makes you live for a whole different reason. It changes everything, and I really can speak now with that joy of knowing that where he is, and the hardest part is for us left behind.
What's grief look like right now? We've just got a couple minutes with you before you got to go, but
it's been. I got to do a little singing thing the other night with my son and then my daughter, who does praise and worship, and we sang for a fundraiser. And we're sharing songs, but you cannot help but share the Lord. And that's what it's just the urgency of sharing the Lord. And we have given the gift of this ministry, of this trial, this testimony. And I honestly, and even in the Bible, we grieve differently than those who don't know him.
Yep.
Because we can, and we can grieve with hope.
Yeah.
And so that's what it looks like. And so if someone wants to hear, I don't go all the way in through that. I just go, look, I just know that give the Lord, just like my buddy did.
Yep.
I'm not saying don't go try to clean yourself up, but please giving a relationship with Christ a chance, because I know what a last day looks like.
Right.
And it looked like he walked out the door and was like, Dad, love you, Dad. And I said, all right, I'll see you in a little while. And he goes, all right, we'll see you in a little while. Love you. And that was it. And it was there's days. There's days you have because he's a one of a kind, you know. What a life. I had someone yesterday just send me a picture of him literally leaping over a guy in a football game and then landing on his feet and scoring in a playoff game. I remember that picture in that game, and they called it back because you're not allowed to jump over a guy. And the guy was standing straight up, and he jumped over him. He was one of the best athletes in our family, probably better quarterback than all of them. They all play quarterback. But he wasn't. He was 6 foot instead of 6'2" or 6'3". But there was a lot of reasons, you know, that God does what he does with our lives. But I miss that guy and his personality and his character and it's just a light. He's such a light, but he still is, you know. And so, and he's still alive and in our family, and it's I'm just so grateful that all I'll say is this, that I think I can't believe how faithful and trustworthy God is to his promises. And when we started looking for answers, because we had to find answers, and started believing what he says in here, the vengeance is mine, so you don't get mad. Don't be so mad at this kid that did it. Don't, you know, and not only that, you wouldn't do that, CJ. I know you would want to be alone with, but you wouldn't, because you have the heart of Christ and you're not going to just go do that. Now, you defend yourself, you would have done the same thing at the bar. You would have, we all would have. But that's his now. That's his vengeance. In fact, it gave us the strength to go, man, I hope this kid builds a ministry in prison. He'd never had a dad. And then you start looking in this kid, and I remember sitting in front of him in a preliminary trial and looking at him across the room, and the Holy Spirit just told him, man, this kid, they're talking about his record and his life. He had no dad. He had zero, then it all goes back. And I honestly believe that's the whole what's wrong with the world.
Fatherlessness.
Father. And it comes right to the first question you asked in this. It's all about being and knowing your father. And if you don't have a father, how are you going to trust your father in heaven, let alone, you know, but if you don't have a father, but gosh, get to know the Father in heaven, or we don't have a chance as a nation. And we don't have as a nation, as a world, anything. And I think I don't see the hopelessness. It's just really wild. The best thing in my family right now is knowing that we talk so much about salvation and how much Jesus, how good it's going to be, how this world is hard, but we can get through it because not in our own strength, but in his. And we talk about it every day. So what's today? It's one more day closer to seeing our Savior. Not even so much Clay. It's more, I think we'll be so in awe, the glory, we'll be in so much glory of him that we won't be focused on trying to find our loved ones. Well, that'll come. But you know, that's what I think of in all of our, so that I'm like, we say it every day, hey, if I'm gone, right? See you soon. And that's literally what it's turned into. So when people are literally laying hands on people I'm in that kind of maybe a wacky world of I'm fellowship more than anybody I know, that I'm just finding guys, men, and we share and do stuff and we pray for each other all the time. And I really almost feel I feel bad when we're trying to pray someone back into this world, that are on their, man, he's got cancer, man, this is going to be, and I'm like, man, why? Man, he knows the Lord. He's going to heaven. I mean, it's kind of like a weird thing for me. I know for us, we want him here.
Yes, of course.
And that's what it is. But for
in the
them,
grand scheme of things.
Yes, and in the grand scheme of Clay going to heaven, as hard as it is, and sometimes we sit around and weep and cry, and it'll come out of nowhere. But it's always with hope. In the grand scheme, what it's done with our life, Clay would go, no chance I'm coming back. Pull up your boots. Come on, get over it. I'll see you soon. You know, then when we're going, all right, and that's him. Are you kidding? You guys still worried about me? You're still doing this. No, I'm not coming back. And you guys just wait. And I can't wait to get to heaven and go and see what it's really done in the kingdom. You know?
That's so amazing. Hopefully, can we share the link of that funeral service in the show notes of this podcast?
Please do.
I got to go find it again, but people will be inspired by it.
Gosh.
And you're taking what I'm saying the right way. It's not like, oh, we're so inspired, we're glad your kid died.
No. I think use it. I think it's, after that, I was like, I mean, there were so many people going that were there the same going, I don't even know what that was. I don't know what that was. What was that? They went to, this was the biggest compliment I got from that service. We call it Celebration of Life. But I got was, Casey, I walked in there not wanting to go because I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to lift you up. But I walked out going, wait a minute, they lifted me up.
Yeah. I remember feeling that. Just being so inspired.
And it wasn't me.
Like 2 a.m. in Detroit in some hotel.
Right.
And
the Lord gave us the word. He was there. Man, he gave us strength to get through it and do it. It was not us. That was our first major encounter and an absolutely changing of our lives was when my son went to heaven. It changed everything.
Man.
Everything for the better.
Well, thank you so much for being. We're a couple minutes long. You got to get out of here. No, I'm you're the one who's got to get out of here. But this has been such a great pleasure, and thank you. And I'll let you know when it's time to write that foreword.
Yeah, remember the drinking bone's connected to the party bone. Just remember that. If you take nothing else out of it.
I love it. Thank you so much.
The CC Podcast Conversations is part of Christian Crusaders radio and internet ministry, started in 1936 and is one of America's longest-running radio ministries. We are 100% donor-funded, and donations to our ministry are tax-deductible. So if you are encouraged, challenged, or inspired by today's conversation, please consider making a donation on our website, ChristianCrusaders.org, or mail a check to Christian Crusaders, 7401 University Avenue, Cedar Falls, Iowa, 50613. In addition to our other podcasts, which I mentioned at the front of this episode, I want to mention 2 of our other ministry partners worth checking out. First, the Cedar Falls Bible Conference, equipping believers with the truth of God's Word since 1922. Visit cedarfallsbibleconference.com for free access to previous conference content or for more information about upcoming events. Second is Power to Change Digital Strategies, an online ministry partnering volunteer Christian mentors with people around the world searching the internet for answers. If you or someone you know could benefit from an anonymous online conversation with a caring Christian adult, go to issuesiface.com. Or if you would like to be a volunteer Christian mentor, please visit p2cdigital.com. That's the letter P, the number 2, and the letter C, digital.com. See our episode notes for details and links, and remember to subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. God's richest blessings to you, and thanks again for listening.